Do I have to do a therapeutic separation to not be codependent? Welcome to the Therapy Brothers podcast.
I'm Brannon.
I'm Tyler.
We're brothers.
We're therapists.
And we know recovery.
Bring your stories, your questions, your successes with real recovery.
Hey, Tyler, you ready to have some hard conversations?
Let's do it.
Let the Therapy Brothers podcast begin. Hey, Tyler.
Brannon, what's going on, man?
Not much. You know, every day I wake up, I just wonder, like, I know Tyler's been on the prowl, like from 4 a.m. on the mountain. Like, you got like just total white trash stuff all morning. But
those are the best dailies, man. That's the best for the daily charge.
You find antlers, you shoot coyotes.
You go look for antlers, shoot coyotes, go fishing, go exercise, go hike.
Yeah, I mean the white trash self-care program, like it works.
It's a good life. It
works life, well. Man. You get in nature, you get exercise,
you get it all.
You get it all. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, healthy hobbies.
Yeah,
it's great.
I'm usually up early around 4. You know, I've read some good literature. You know, prayed for an hour at least.
I'm sure you have.
You know, 4 or 5. You know, exercise, get my workout in.
Meanwhile, you rolled out of bed like 15 minutes ago and drove down to the office. Like,
you never know with me.
Who knows?
Yeah. Well, should we get into it today?
Yeah, let's go.
All right. We got Hal with us. Hal, welcome to the show.
Hi, guys. Thanks so much for having me.
You're welcome. If you could just give us a little bit of what's going on and we'll go from there.
Yeah, for sure. So I've been together with my wife for, I think, 9 years. We've been married for 5 years. And discovery date of my infidelity was, I think, around 4 years ago. Anyway, so I've been doing the recovery journey for the last 3 years. And recently, one of my psychologists was telling me about codependency, and he was pointing that out for me. And he was suggesting to do a therapeutic separation, like a out of home, like different houses, therapeutic separation. And he was kind of implying that I basically have to do that. I have 2 counselors, and my other counselor's like, no, you definitely don't need to do a out of home therapeutic separation. But yeah, I guess my question for you guys is to work on my codependency. How important is a therapeutic separation? Is that the only way? Yeah, I think that's kind of my main question at where I'm at in my recovery journey today.
All right. Before we jump into that, Hal, 2 questions. Do you actually relate to that feeling of being codependent with your wife, number one? And if so, what are the ways that you feel like you're showing up in a codependent kind of fashion?
Yeah, so certainly, yes, I identify with that codependency piece. Because the more I read about codependency, I definitely see it. So one of the things that I would do is basically, say what I think my wife would want me to say, or do what I want my wife would want me to do. And that's true like in other relationships too. It could be as small as a coworker. I identify with some codependency with my parents, with my mom in particular. And then in terms of showing, I think your second question was like, in terms of showing up today, like I have started to just over the last few weeks, just start to work on that and just like speak my voice and speak my truth more, even if it's really challenging in terms of not saying what I think my wife would say. And I just speaking my own truth of like, you know what, that doesn't really work for me. Yeah.
So it sounds like codependency to me. At the Do you know what's underneath the codependency?
Yeah. So I think it's basically trying to keep everybody else happy, um, to keep myself from feeling pain. Really, like it's the like what I'm working on right now is just my own self-worth and my own connection to my own higher power. So right now, a lot of like what I recognize in my own day to day is just, being performing or having a mask on. And coming back to codependency is that, yeah, trying to just keep others happy,
Mm-hmm.
and not rock the boat. And yeah.
I like where you went with that, Hal, of like, you're trying to work on your own self-worth and your own connection to a higher power. If someone who's really struggling with codependency is somebody who lacks an understanding of self and lacks a connection with a higher power. And that is the root of the codependency. It's not about the relationship or the partner or anything like that. It's about consumption of a partner for your self-worth. And that's where your truths go out the window and the relationship becomes way too important and starts to take over, and it causes all kinds of problems, as you're well aware of.
As you were talking, Hal, I just wrote down, I kind of filled in the gaps, and I want to see how close this is to what you said. Basically, the way that your codependency shows up in relationships is through something that we sometimes call pleaseritis, which is where you like.
I've never heard pleaseritis. I like that.
Well, there's lots of ways that it manifests itself, right? But in this case, and what it sounds like, Hal, as you relate to this, is it's not just with your wife, it's with other people. And I was trying to fill in the blanks. You said, if everyone is happy, that equals, and then you said, I don't feel pain. And I want you to just expand on that a little bit further. What kind of pain don't you feel if you keep everyone happy by just agreeing with them?
Yeah, it's yeah, and I yeah, like it's that like the AA saying is like that irritable, was it irritable discontent? Like discontent's probably the best word for it. Like, if everything stops and I'm just sitting there, there's like this internal unease. Um I mean, I guess thankfully, I haven't had any traumas in my life. Like, I think I've had like the small things. But yeah, there's no huge pain. It's just when everything stops and everything's quiet, then there's just this internal discontent and like feeling of like things, I wish things were better kind of thing.
Okay. And what would it mean to you if, like, let's say your wife, since we're talking about your marriage, or it could be someone at work or whatever, what does it mean to you if they don't agree with you or if they disapprove of your opinion on something?
Right. Yeah. So shame is probably the biggest thing. So, and maybe I'll use both those examples. Like the easier one is like my coworker. Like it's so funny. Like we've known each other for a long time, and I still walk around with a mask, and I'm always trying to just tell him like what I think he would want to hear to approve of me. So he could be like, "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah," like he has both an electric car and a pickup truck. So I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, electric car, sweet. Like that's awesome for the environment. Or like, oh yeah, pickup truck, like that's sweet for putting all your crap in it and it like burns all the gas. Like so just like as like yeah, as or like um one time I was telling a friend, like I was basically just trying to be a positive person. I'm like, oh, the banana is green, it's all good. Like green bananas are good. And then like a little bit later, I was eating a really brown banana. He's like, "Oh, I thought you only like green bananas." I'm like, "No, I really like the brown bananas." He's like, "What are you like? What are you talking about?"
Who are you?
Yeah, exactly. And then, anyways, coming back to my wife though, like for her, the main things would be like, she'll say, she'll say stuff like oh, like, are you gonna love me? Are we gonna be together forever? Like, kind of like the really like consuming things. And recently, since discovery, like I don't know. We don't know where things are gonna go. Like, we might separate, we might divorce. So sometimes she asks me questions like that, like, are we gonna stay together forever? Like, it doesn't, it feels uncomfortable to me because I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't actually know if this relationship is good for me or us. So in the past, I'd basically just say like, yeah, we're gonna stay together forever. Like, yeah, no, we're good. And then whereas now more recently, I've finally been able to show up and say like, you know what, like, I hope so, but maybe not too. Like, just yeah, like I don't know right now. So anyways, so to answer your question, like, yeah, when I have those kind of consuming questions from the wife, like I just say kind of whatever it is to say, like yes, we'll be together forever. When internally, I'd be like, I don't know.
I'm kind of hearing you say that in a lot of ways, it's just scary to be authentic and honest, because the truth might be painful, and so you've learned how to adapt by being a chameleon, and trying to give people the answer that they want. I'm curious about, well, I'm actually curious about a couple of things, but let's start here. Your relationship with your mom, what's that like?
Yeah, so that one's pretty codependency. Like, that's probably a big part of where it all started. Like, I'm just trying to think of like, so yeah, like for example, she lives in a different city. She'll come visit. In the last time she came to visit, like, she'll come to my house and then she'll say something like, oh, like, it's all messy, or this is dirty, or you should mow the lawn more, or whatever. And then that totally gets in my head where, like, I'll just say, okay, fine. And then when she leaves, and then the next time she comes, like, all those things that she said, like, oh, like, clean this up, mow the lawn, or whatever, then I'll definitely try to get all those things done, and I'll feel a ton of shame, just because of like the disorganization in my life in general. Like, the lawn's not mowed and the house is messy and things like that. So it kind of like makes this snowball effect of shame and people pleasing, and yeah, and I'm trying to show up more, just like, you know what, like, I didn't get time to mow the lawn, I didn't get time to do that, or my priority is not to clean my house. I'd like to go enjoy this, the autumn or whatever. So
How do you come from a big family?
there's three of us.
What number are you?
I'm the smallest.
You're the baby?
Yeah.
Um, okay. And was there always this like, hey, you should please mom
Yeah,
mentality? Yeah.
for sure. Like, ours is like, I've heard your guys' story, and I'm kind of somewhat the golden child on the other side. Like, I know
Mhm.
Tyler's talked about being golden child as the oldest. Ours was more like my oldest brother, who's quite a bit older than me. Like, he's 7 years older than me. He would. I just remember my parents would, like, he kind of struggled in school. Like, so he needed like extra lessons, or he'd get like poor grades in math, for example. And then so everyone would be mad about it, and my brother would kind of get like in trouble from both my parents. Um, and then on the flip side, like, my brother, who's closer to me in age, him and I, like, we're just naturally good at math in school. So we were a bit lucky that way. And then so I'd see with Jay, like the one that's closer to me in age, be like, oh, if he gets good grades, like, okay, like, that's a good thing. And then for me, if I got good grades, like, oh yeah, that's a good thing. So um anyway, so that's an example of like with my oldest brother, it's like, if he does poorly in school, he gets in trouble, it's bad, and like they make a huge deal of it. And then for me, yeah, like one of the things to please or to keep mom and dad happy was like to do well. And like I did super well in high school, did really well in university, like went on to postgraduate degrees. So
You can see where you can hear kind of where you're gleaning your worth from is like,
totally,
look, I'm good. I'm the good kid, and they don't have to worry about me because I'm the good kid. And
totally.
yeah, and so and then you got the addiction. The other thing I was wondering about, we don't have to get too into this, is the extent of your addiction.
Yeah, sure.
You know, how much hiding, how much secrecy were you in while trying to be this chameleon good husband, you know? And when you mix those two things, you just end up with a ton of shame,
Totally.
you know, that feeling of no one will love me as I am is just like dominating your life, with the codependency mixed with the addiction at the same time. And I imagine you were in that hell for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. In terms of addiction, so yeah, like sex and love addiction, like porn, masturbation. So I discovered online porn. I was probably like junior high or high school. I just remember I was on a cousin's computer and open the folder that's called like homework,
Recipes.
your recipes or whatever. And I'm like, what's in here? Then I pull up a video and I was like, whoa. And I was watching some porn. And I was like, this is so captivating. Like I just watched and watched it. But then like from there, it's not like I kept going back. It's more like in university when like the internet was getting better and I probably eventually got my own laptop that, it is kind of like that insidious start. And then over, 10 years of university and then like just kind of being on a computer more than I would go on online porn more. And then fast forward to like in our relationship. So after the first year of marriage, like I had some health problems and it was kind of like in a dark headspace. And anyways, like would go on online porn more and more. And then eventually was like, you know what, I want to meet people in person. So then I would meet up with somebody like off of an online dating website and then like met up with them physically to have sex. And then my wife found out about it. Because I basically didn't do a good job of hiding my tracks. Yeah, I feel like I'm kind of getting off track, but anyways, that was kind of where it was. And then today is like basically trying not to like go on porn, and I still struggle with it now. I had a 3 months of sobriety, and then relapsed recently, and it's been frustrating that way. I hadn't had any extramarital affairs since that one 3 or 4 years ago. But even just online porn is still a struggle for me.
I think the point that Brannon was asking about when you kind of share that backstory is it kind of shows how the recipe forms itself when you're growing up in a place where you're getting these messages that I have to keep everybody happy with me. That fuels the need to always maybe make sure you're projecting a certain image towards the people that you're around, while at the same time you've still got this pressure and this desire and need to cope emotionally with whatever's going on in your life. And when you form like what goes from an innocent thing as a teenage junior high boy into some kind of a habit that you don't like, but you got to keep it secret, the codependency itself is actually maybe the bigger part of the problem than even the acting out is itself, because it's holding the acting out in place, because you can't get sober, you can't get into recovery, you can't live the life you were designed for without honesty, and the codependency refuses to let you live in honesty.
I think that's true for sure.
They fuel and feed each other. They're like symbiotic relationship. The more codependent you are, the more you're going to act out. The more you're going to act out, the more shame you're going to have, and the more codependent you're going to show up. And that, the point is, coming back to your question about, do you need therapeutic separation to not be codependent? You need to be as conscious as you possibly can be about these systems that are at play for you, and then act opposite to those systems. And your spouse, depending on how healthy she is, and your relationship, depending on healthy your relationship is, can be one of the best training grounds to actually be a healthy person. But also the relationship at times can be so triggering and so toxic that you don't have the strength to actually do that work with that person. So it could go either way, depending on if you guys want to engage in that work together and you're totally conscious and aware of what you're dealing with. Then it can work as you can stay together. But sometimes it just can't. It's too toxic, it's too hard, it's too triggering, and you need some space.
Another way of saying that, Hal, is to use your own example from earlier today, which is interesting that you use this because most people won't connect the dots. But the work that you're trying to do now in your relationship with your wife, when she asks, "Are we going to be together forever?" and you're always like, "Yes, yes, of course. Like, you're my one and only." And now you're kind of stepping into what feels more honest, which is, "Man, I sure hope so, but I don't know, to be honest with you." That sounds scary to your partner, but that actually puts you guys in a better spot to actually work out whatever your marriage issues might be. And it's actually necessary for your own personal recovery work when it comes to the things you're trying to overcome. And what Brannon's saying is if you can, inside your relationship, if there's space to do that work, then a therapeutic separation would not be the right thing to do. But if there's no space to do that work because it's too flooding or it's too overwhelming, or because there's just no space to do it because you or your partner don't see the bigger picture as to why you need to do that work, then a therapeutic separation would be a decent option to create the space you need to keep your feet planted and keep working on those things.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Like that's yeah, in terms of that example of like where I recently said like, oh, like, yeah, like hopefully we stay together, but like I'm not sure. I don't know what will happen. Like, as hard as that conversation is, and as hard as it is to see my wife hurt, and then for the next the rest of that day she's upset, like, as hard as that is, like, it feels so much better for myself. And maybe the other thing is, like, surprisingly, she bounces back pretty quickly. Like, for whatever reason in my head, I'm like, oh, like, if I say that, we're screwed forever. And then she bounces back like pretty quickly, where she kind of appreciates the honesty. So yeah, it definitely, like, I only have a small sample size, but like when I have done it, it does feel good. And it does feel like a place where we can work on it together. Like, for sure, we're not perfect. We both have our own codependency stuff, but at the same time, it's kind of helpful. Like, my wife definitely sees, like, she can see and feel my stress going up when my mom comes over, and same for her. Like, and I've given examples of, because it's kind of hard. Like, I've been trying to explain this whole codependency thing and what it is and what parts are unhealthy in our relationship. I've been trying to explain that to my wife, and as much as she doesn't like it, like, I can use examples from like her relationship with her mom. Like, the example I'll use is like, when you're like, you haven't looked at your phone for 4 hours and your mom like texted you like 15 times, and then you're all annoyed after. You're like, oh my gosh, like, mom, like, if I didn't text back in like 4 hours, it doesn't mean I'm dead. Like, it's all good. Can you just like relax over there? And I tell her, like, that feeling you get when your mom does that to you, like, that's what codependency to me is. So anyways, hopefully that wasn't too much of a tangent, but my point is more that, like, we both have codependency to each other. We both have codependency with our own, I guess, moms. And it is like, yeah, because it's something that I'm working at in all my relationships. But like, obviously, my wife's relationship, we just, yeah, that's the biggest one. So,
Hal, I got a couple questions. So you don't know if the relationship's going to work, and you're
yeah.
expressing that to your wife.
Yeah.
Do you want the relationship to work?
Yes, I do. I guess with the asterisks of, I don't, I want it to work. It can't, I've heard this on your guys' podcast before. It can't go on the way that it has been. Like, it has to be a new relationship, like where just the whole dynamic and us as individuals are healthier. So I guess I want it to work in that way, which is a bit conditional. And
Well, I think that's okay. Like
That's
you're
fair.
just saying, like, let's work out, get rid of some of this bad stuff that's really harmed us in our relationship. And then, I hope that our relationship works. I just think, sometimes the pendulum swings from like, yeah, we'll be together forever. We'll be to like, I don't know if it's going to work out, and you can go to like, I don't know it's going to work out, but I'm going to fight like hell.
yeah.
We're going to, I love you. I hope so, but we'll see, just to kind of add that in a little bit. And it wouldn't be honest if deep down in your heart you don't want it to work out, and then you're just kind of saying, well, I don't know if it will, versus I don't want it to. And
Right, I see.
you see what I'm saying? But it sounds like you are being honest about it with where you're at. You're doing the work, you're engaged in the work, you want things to improve with her. But do you see the difference there?
I totally do. And it's, yeah. And I guess that's another complicating part. But so anyway, so, there have been things that I've done to my wife or my wife has done to me kind of throughout our relationship. That's kind of just always made me a little bit like, ooh, like, should I be in this relationship? Like, the example I was talking to her the other day was like, oh, like early in our relationship, like we're at a wedding, you got drunk and like she was like punching me in front of all these people, and I was super like embarrassed about it. And I was like, that was such a red flag. Like, I can't believe I stayed in this relationship. Anyway, so there's stuff like that throughout our relationship. And I've only kind of brought it up recently to her, like, you know what, I actually do have reluctances, like, and I use that as example or things like that. And I know even like when I proposed to get married, like it was a bit of like me caving to external pressures of like, oh, like grandmama, granddad are like, they're coming back for a couple weeks in February, and like, it'd be awesome to be engaged like before they get here. So like, I was still a little bit on the fence, or like had some hesitancies. And then I kind of caved to like that pressure. So to answer your question about like, do I want to be together? It's like, sometimes like overall, yes, but like, I guess it's not like, yeah, there's definitely some things that make me hesitant or reluctant sometimes. And then definitely for sure, like just like sex addiction, and my whole addiction of like, there's something like the grass is greener on their side, or I could just blow this up and get a new relationship. Like, there's like that part too, but I'm at least recognizing that part, that's just addiction stuff. So
yeah.
I wonder how, if maybe expanding off of Brannon's question a little bit would be part of your direction here, which is to actually conceptualize in your mind the kind of relationship that you would like to have, and then do an inventory of yourself as to what you're doing to help it move towards that. And if you're doing everything in your power to help it move towards that, even if there's some conflict and struggle in it, then you're inviting your partner to grow into that space with you, and she will either come along or she won't. And that will be more of your answer than figuring out, do I want to stay in this one or do I not want to stay in this one? The way that you're going to find that out is by actually inviting, by doing your best to invite it, the kind of relationship that you want to be in. And what I'm hearing actually is, already with what we're talking about, you're already stepping into some of this work. And her response to you isn't the measuring stick of whether or not you're doing the right work, but it is a good sign that she's actually kind of welcoming you having a voice and having your opinions. And even if she gets mad and goes away for a minute, she comes back and says, hey, like, thanks for being honest, even though it was hard to hear or whatever. Like, that's part of the growing that a relationship can do if there's space to do that growing. I don't know how it ends for you guys, but it sounds like you're trending in the right direction with not being codependent, and she sounds like she's at least open to that possibility that she doesn't want to be married to a codependent guy.
Yeah, I think so for sure. Like we're, I think the main thing is, so thank you for that feedback. Cause I like that, like take inventory of like what's, what we got right now, and then trying to picture where we want to go. Or at least I guess for me, where I want to go, but
well, you're already getting there. Like when you go and have that conversation about, let's just say the example of the wedding thing where you were kind of getting physically abused, you allowed that to happen in the past. And by bringing it up now, there's two things you're doing. It's not just to complain about it. It's to actually say, hey, these were some wounds from the past. And these are the kinds of things that we can't continue to have happen in our relationship.
Right.
And so if they continue to happen, then that's where what you're now doing is you're queuing up a place where you're starting to say, this is me, and these are going to be the new boundaries moving forward. And you're being fair to her by telling her that, because she's never had those boundaries in the past with your relationship. So you're inviting a change to the system by doing that.
Totally.
Al, I want to, before we run out of time, I want to do something with you.
Sure.
You are your mother and I am you. Okay. And you're staying at my house and the house is a wreck.
Okay.
just a mess. Okay. And so you are going to express that to me like she would. Okay. And I'm going to be you. All right.
Okay.
Let's try it.
Okay. Oh, why is this house so messy? You should really keep it cleaner.
Okay. You're feeling like the house is very messy?
Yeah, why is it you should be keeping it cleaner. Like it's dusty, and that's why I told you not to get dogs. Like it just adds to this mess too.
Mom, I want you to know that if you want to stay at our house, you can. But if you're going to complain about it and how dirty it is, then I can't have you stay here. You're going to have to go stay somewhere else.
Oh, I was just, I think she'd say something like, well, I'm just trying to help you. Like I
appreciate your help, Mom, but I didn't ask for your help. So I would prefer that, if you don't want to stay here, you don't have to. But if you come here and you complain about how dirty it is or not, that doesn't work for me. Okay, time out. Do I sound like a jerk?
No, you don't.
I think some of our listeners are cringing right now.
Yeah, that's a cringy conversation.
Yeah.
But that's what non-codependent people do, is they have cringy conversations.
Right.
They have honest conversations versus I spend 2 weeks cleaning my house for the next time she comes, and I'm anxious and I feel shame and I'm trying to please her. I'm doing the opposite of trying to please her in that moment. Mom, I am who I am. You need to know me. I love you, but I can't have you stay here if you're going to criticize the dust on the dresser.
Right.
Yeah, that doesn't work for me.
Right.
You're welcome to get a hotel room.
Yeah.
You can still go to lunch tomorrow.
Right.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Totally. Yeah. For sure.
Completely non-pleaseritis. Is that what you call it, Tyler?
Yeah.
Anti-pleaseritis.
Yes. Now, doing that, would that terrify you?
Yes and no. Like, no, it doesn't terrify me in terms of because I have tried it. Like, in terms of, um, I'll try to make this example quick. Like, because like my parents know that my wife and I are going through a hard time, so she'll ask like, "How's it going? How's it going? How's it going?" And then I'll say like, it's not good right now, but I don't need you to do anything about it, or I don't like, that's just my thing. Like, you don't have to do anything about it. Like, you don't have to give me suggestions. Like, I just want you to hear it. Um, and then in terms of like, does it terrify me? Like, it's such a like knee jerk reaction of like, she'll say or do something, and then I'm just quick to the people pleasing.
You
But
show up weak.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just so much easier and like
So next time, this might sound even weirder or cringier.
Sure.
Next time, acknowledge that out loud, even to her.
mm.
Mom, I want to show up weak right now and just please you and try to keep the whole house clean.
Yeah.
But what I really need to tell you is this.
Right.
So out that protective part a little bit so you
Right.
can unburden it
Right.
and then step right into your truth.
Right. Yeah. I like that. Thank you.
Because it's automatic. It's unconscious. You'll just do it.
Totally.
And so when you bring it forth, it's like, oh shoot, now I'm getting accountable and acknowledging what I'm doing here. I really want to show up weak here with you, Mom, but I got to tell you, like, I don't need your feedback about my dust.
Totally.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. And this principle goes with everyone, with your wife, with this authenticity, practicing that over and over again. It's not you being heartless. It's you being honest.
Yeah.
You can still have a lot of empathy. Like, Mom, it's hard to be in a dirty place. I know. And I don't want to hear about it from you.
Totally.
Right.
Yeah.
So you don't need to get a therapeutic separation to practice this with your wife unless you're always codependent and you can't have the emotion regulation and the fortitude in order to stay in order to get yourself back into a wise mind place to show up honest. If you're always in that state of fight or flight, wondering, am I doing okay? Am I in shame or not?
Right.
You might need some space. If you can handle it and you can bring it back to some rationale and logic with her, then you can practice with her.
Totally. Yeah. No, I like that a lot. And like I said, like it's from, the small sample size I have, like it has been going well. And I'm lucky that I have a support network, and support groups I go to, and I bounce it off of people and we all kind of talk about our own, probably all of us are codependent, like in my group, I mean, and so we kind of talk about like, oh yeah, the hardships of like, oh yeah, like I have that too. And, so of course I find that helpful to have that support, but, because it hasn't felt like, like I do feel like we've had progress even just in the last month of me trying to step up and speak my truth.
It's going to be a process. So
yeah.
How we're running low on time. Do you have any last questions for us? Any last things?
No, I think, no, I don't really like, I like, thank you. I appreciate the help today. And I really identify with that, like the codependency and the porn addiction, they kind of feed off of each other. And definitely like when I look back at like, what are the triggers of my relapses? And, it often has to do with stresses in relationships that are caused by codependency.
Yeah.
I'm convinced of this, and it's not just for you, but for a lot of people that I work with. Hal, you've been a good example of this today, that people always focus on getting sober, and you could get more sober by focusing on your codependency than by only focusing on sobriety. Because when you get out of codependency, you'll get into honesty. And when you're in honesty, you're going to start seeing your life and realizing that it's not serving you. And then you'll start making choices to get yourself sober, because the honesty will take you there. So thank you for your willingness to come on the show today and to share yourself the way you did. I hear good things going in the right direction for you with some of the work that you're doing, and how wish you the best of luck, man.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thanks both of you guys. Yeah, I've listened to probably, I don't know, like hundreds of your guys' episodes, and yeah, I'm glad I finally got to come on. I usually work on Mondays and I can't get on, but there's this new holiday, or I guess day off in Canada, so I finally had a Monday to come on and join you guys. So I really appreciate you guys.
Hal, I appreciate you coming on too. And just one little tidbit before you go.
For
When
sure.
when two therapists disagree,
Yeah.
they're both probably doing their best to help push you in the right direction.
Mhm.
That's where your gut and your truth and like tapping into your higher power comes in.
Mhm.
So you're getting feedback from them, which is great. Then
Mhm.
you get to put that through your filter with your intuition,
Right.
and then you get to step into that and do it authentically, do it honestly. But you're heading in the right direction, Hal. Keep it up. Really appreciate you coming on. You guys, if this was helpful to you in any way, then do a shout out to Hal, write a review and say thank you to him. And until next time, keep on keeping on.